everyone, it's Miss Armstrong here, reading you the first lot of bedtime stories. This is The Imaginary by A.F. Harrold, and it's one of my favourites, and it's about a little girl who has an imaginary friends and they get in a lot of trouble together. So here it is, chapter 1. That evening, Amanda Shuffleup opened her wardrobe door and hung her coat up on a boy. She shut the door and sat down in her bed. She hadn't taken her shoes off before running upstairs, and her feet were wet. It wasn't just her feet either. Her socks and shoes were soaked through too. Her shoes and the laces. The knots were cold and damp and hard and refused to come undone. She picked at them with her fingers, but that just hurt her nails. It felt like they'd pop off before the knot loosened. If the laces never came undone, she thought she'd never get her shoes off, and that meant she'd have to go through life with wet feet. Not only that, but wearing the same shoes forever. Amanda was the sort of girl, as she'd happily tell you, who liked wearing dirty old trainers, because they're comfy, and it doesn't matter if they get dirty, because they're already dirty. But even she could imagine a day, one day, where she might want to wear different shoes. And also, she thought, what if her feet wanted to grow? At school, Miss Shorts had shown them a bonsai tree. It was an oak tree the size of a dandelion, kept that way by growing into a small pot. If she couldn't get her shoes off, she'd be stuck, girl size, for the rest of her life. Just like the tiny root trap tree. That was all right today, but in 10 years' time, being the size she was now might be less of a good thing. It might be, to be frank, be rubbish. That made it more important than ever to get these shoes off. Amanda picked urgently at the sodden knot, and still nothing budged. So, after a moment, she stopped, looked sideways at her feet, pondered, hummed, tutted, hummed again. Then, quick as a cat, she ran to her dressing table, pulled open several drawers and rummaged through them, spilling stuff on the floor, until she held aloft the object of her search. Aha! She said out loud, feeling like a princess who's just found a dragon tied to a tree, and has pulled from her rucksack the exact thing she needs to set it free. A sword, say, or a book about rescuing dragons. Sitting back down on the edge of her bed, she lifted a foot into her lap, pulled the knot up, slid the blade of the scissors between the taut lace and tongue of the shoe, and with a simple and satisfying snip, cut it into two. With the end in sight, she quickly tugged at the lace, loosened it all the way down, and pulled the shoe off, chucking it and her sock into a corner of the room. She wriggled her damp toes in freedom. A moment later, she repeated the operation on the other shoe, and threw it into the same corner. Amanda shuffled backwards onto the bed. Her feet were pale and clammy, and she blew wet warm air on them and patted them dry with the duvet. She, Amanda Shuffleup, was a genius. This is much clearer. Who else, she wondered, would have found so simple a solution so quickly? If Vincent or Julia had come home with wet shoes, these were her friends from school, they'd have wet shoes on now, and their feet would be really cold. So cold, they'd probably have caught pneumonia. That would never happen though, because Vincent and Julia were the sort of kids who didn't spend their Saturday afternoons out in the rain, splashing through the biggest puddles they could find. But that just went to show. Amanda! A voice called from the bottom of the stairs. What? Amanda shouted back. Have you been treading in mud in the carpet again? No. Why's there mud on the carpet then? It weren't me, Mum. Amanda shouted, sliding off into her bed and onto her feet. There were footsteps coming up the stairs. She picked up the wet shoes. Actually, they were a little bit muddy, she thought. Sort of, if you looked really hard. She stood there for a moment, the shoes dangling from her fingertips. If her mum came in and found her holding them like that, and saw the mud on their soles, then she leaped to a conclusion. Amanda had to get rid of the shoes, and quick. Opening the window and chucking them out would take too long. She could throw them under the bed, except her bed was the sort of bed that didn't have an underneath it. It just had big drawers, and they were already cram-packed with important junk. There was only one thing to do. She pulled open the door to her wardrobe and tossed them in there. They hit the boy who was still holding her coat, who said, "Oof!" as the shoes bounced back her stomach and fell into the carpet. Right, we're going to leave that there. So, I hope you sleep well, you stay safe, and stay inside.